Hi, we're Matt and Christina. We live in an off-grid, eclectic hobbit house nestled into the mountains of Colorado. After waiting for our new Ford Transit Trail Edition van for over 8 months, we've decided to throw in the towel and buy a new 2022 four-wheel drive Mercedes Sprinter van. After building out our first van, Clarity, and traveling for 3 years, we've missed van life these last months, and we're excited to build out our new Sprinter van and get back on the road.
So this is actually day 3 of our van build. The first day, what we did is we put in a new sound system. If you don't know about these Mercedes, they are notorious for having the absolute worst stereo system ever I've heard since the 1960s transistor radios in a vehicle. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about how we took all this apart and did this installation. The installation is fairly straightforward for anybody who's done some electronics work, and especially dealing with car stereos. And for details with getting all the panels and things off of the front end and getting this whole thing taken apart, Moonraker Designs has a really great YouTube channel, and he goes into such detail in all of this stuff. I actually watched his details before I undertook it and made it very easy for me, and there's no way I could do any better job than he's done, so I'm going to send you to Moonraker Design YouTube channel. So, why does this Mercedes-Benz radio sound so awful? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because they designed this to make sure that the primary thing that you hear is this little speaker up here under the grill, so that any safety warnings or any communication information that comes from the main computer, you hear that over everything else. And so the way they design that is that any music or any sound that comes out of there, the volume is louder up front on that little tiny tweeter than it is coming through the 2-door speakers. Then the 2-door speakers are pretty awful in themselves. They're both 6-inch woofers, and they are very poor quality. And these speakers that were in the door of this 2022 Sprinter are going where they belong. So how do we make it sound better? Basically, we just need to boost the capacity of the side door speakers to bring up some of that fuller sound out of the woofers. And then in addition to that, I wanted to add a subwoofer to really fill out that bass sound. I'm not a huge loud stereo kind of person, so I opted for a 240 watt, 60 watts per channel little JBL amplifier that I mounted in here. And the way we hooked this up was really simple. All I did is I replaced the speakers in here, and I took the speaker wires that were connected to these side door speakers and just wired them in to the inputs of this LC2 controller. And what this does is it takes the input from these 2 channels and outputs it in a 4-channel setup. And that way I can get outputs to left and right to the 2 front speakers, and then outputs for the left and right channel that bridges and goes to a subwoofer. So I get the full bass sound from both channels in the subwoofer. Simple.
To our delight, our son Austin and our friend Joe came to help Matt with the stereo upgrade, and may very well be joining us for upcoming van build installations.
Over the last 3 years traveling in our other van, Clarity, we found that we really didn't listen to the radio from the van while we're in the back. We have a little Bluetooth speaker that we use. Our computers have really good sound, and that works well enough for what we want to do while we're camping. So I powered this radio from the source power that's built into this van. There's a terminal right down here in the driver's side seat base that's very accessible. There are 3 terminals in this terminal block, and the one on the far right is a keyed terminal, so it only puts out 12 volt power from the start battery when you turn on the key. And that's what I wired this stereo into. So when you turn on the key and the vehicle comes on, then the amp in that controller will power up. And then it was a simple matter of running the wires underneath this chase right over to the other seat base and to that amp and controller. So while we have this whole thing torn apart, there were also a couple of wires I needed to run up to the front of the van while it's a mess. One of those is this wire here. So we're adding some floodlights to the back of the van. So in order to turn those on while I'm sitting in the driver's seat, I need an auxiliary switch right here in the panel next to the driver's knee. And so I needed a wire running from the back of the van, where those are going to be powered from the back of the van, so that I can actually run those if I need to work outside or for some other reason without having to turn the van on. The other thing I needed to run up to the front of the van here are these wires, which are my 4-gauge wires to the battery charger. And they run right under here and up this little chase and into the battery compartment. One more thing that I also had to run through this chase is our Espar heater, which also mounts under this passenger seat. It's the nicest, sweetest little setup, but the power is going to be coming from the back batteries, from the house batteries, so I needed to run the power wire and actually all the control wires through there before I get this all buttoned up. If you're putting swivel seats in your van, the Scopema seats are really listed as kind of the king of the mountain, so to speak. One of the reasons for that is they only add about 7/8 of an inch in seat height, but they do function really smoothly. And you just got to pull the seat all the way forward to activate it, and then you just push back on it. You got to overcome that tension a little bit. They really move nice and smooth. They're really solid, like they're not going to move back and forth. The swivel seats that we had in our ProMaster, when you would accelerate and decelerate, they would click back and forth. They were moving just a fraction of an inch, and these don't do that at all. We're not going to show you the full install of this Espar heater either, because Moonraker Designs also has a fabulous installation video on this exact heater. We originally bought a Propex 2800 heater for the Transit because we knew we were going to have to run it off of propane, and we had propane in the van anyway, so it just made sense. So we got the Espar heater from San Juan Vans. They had one that they're not using because now they do a completely different system in their van. The reason that these are such good heaters is because, one, they use very little fuel, and they run off of the diesel fuel in the tank. And on top of that, Mercedes makes it so easy to tap into. The tap is already actually in the diesel tank, and all you have to do is undo the cap off the top and plug in the connector, and you've got diesel fuel running to your heater. It puts out 7,500 BTU, which is not quite as much as the 9,000 BTU, but we're told that it really puts out the heat and it'll heat up this van no problem. This Espar heater is so small and it fits right under that seat base, and it's allowed us to actually use a smaller propane tank because the stovetop uses almost no fuel at all. We'll be able to go a month or two on one small tank of propane, and that just gives us much more room under the sink cabinet, and it's just going to be better system for us all the way around. This has been a very productive week for us. Not only did we get the audio system in, we got the heating system in and mostly connected. We got the swivel seats in and got the dash put back together. We took the headliner out and put all this sound deadening in there and then insulated it. We got a little bit more to stuff up in the corners here. And then we also got this shelf that San Juan Vans puts in their rigs, and we looked at it. It was such a clean, beautiful, easy installation, and you can buy one of these from San Juan Vans if you want one for your Sprinter for $250. It really is the bomb. Stay tuned to our next video when we're going to cut holes in our van, put our vent fan in, our skylight, and our windows. Looking forward to that.
We're excited and relieved to have finally begun our van build. Stay tuned as we race Mother Nature to complete as much of our van as possible before winter sets in. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.